Here is something that's going to sound wrong the first time you hear it. Just hiring good people can be one of the worst things you can do for your marketing. Not bad people, good people. The content creator who actually understands the platform, the ad specialist who reads a dashboard like a second language, the designer with real taste, the community manager who replies to every comment within the hour. You hire all of them, and then 3 months in, you pull everyone into a meeting and ask the only question that matters. Is this working? And everyone says yes. The content person points to engagement, climbing. The ads person points to click-through rate, healthy. The designer points to the new visual identity, finally looking like a real brand instead of a side hustle. Everyone is telling the truth. Everyone is winning their individual job, and your revenue hasn't moved a single inch. So here's the question nobody wants to sit with. If everyone is doing their job well and the business is still losing, what does that actually tell you? It tells you the people were never the problem, which means something else is. I'm going to come back to that because here is the second thing that's going to sound wrong. A lot of marketing makes the business it's meant to help worse off, not better, not less effective, just worse. Adding another platform, hiring another agency, posting more often, doubling the ad spend, and every one of those moves can actively damage a business that already has the wrong thing underneath it. That sounds backwards, so let me show you why it isn't. Picture 3 buckets meant to hold water, and one of them has a hole in the bottom. Instead of fixing the hole, the business buys a bigger tap. More water goes in. The bucket still empties out exactly as fast as before, except now it's also more expensive to keep filling. That's a lot of marketing budget. More spending poured over the same leak and everyone in the room mistaking the bigger tap for progress. The leak was never the budget. We'll get to what that is actually. Let's go back to the good people. Now think about building a house. You hire the best bricklayer in the city, the best electrician, the best plumber, the best carpenter. Every one of them genuinely excellent at their craft, but they never talk to each other. So the plumber runs pipes exactly where the electrician plans to run cables. The carpenter finishes a wall that blocks access to the breaker panel. The painter coats a surface that still needs to be torn open for construction. Everyone worked hard. Everyone delivered quality work. The house still doesn't function. You wouldn't blame any one of those workers. The issue was never skill. It was coordination. That's your marketing team. Brilliant specialists and not one shared blueprint between them. The good people aren't the problem. The absence of a blueprint is. Good people without a blueprint just mean the dysfunction gets built faster and looks more convincing while it's happening. So before you add anyone new to a team, ask yourself something uncomfortable. Can you explain in one sentence how their work is supposed to connect to everyone else's? If you can't, you're not short on talent, you're short on architecture, and you're about to hire someone excellent to make that gap even worse. Here is where we stop and do something. Pull your last 30 pieces of content, every post, email, ad, video, whatever you've published. For each one, mark whether it references, builds on, or responds to something you published before. Count them. If less than half of them have a connection to previous work, you're resetting every time you publish. That's your first metric to fix. Not engagement, not reach, not click-through rate, connection rate. How much of your output is actually building on itself? Now let's keep going. A lot of founders somewhere along the way decide the answer is to hand the whole problem to a specialist, a social media agency that just does social media, a paid ads agency that just runs ads, a content agency that just makes content. And to be fair, it works for a while. The social agency grows your following. The ads agency drops your cost per click. The content agency fills your calendar with published videos. You see movement and movement feels like proof. But movement isn't the same as a system. And here's how you can tell the difference. The moment that agency pauses, or you stop paying them, or you switch to a different one, the results don't just slow down. They just stop completely because nothing was ever built that could run without them. You weren't building a business that markets itself. You were renting a result month after month from someone else's machine. That's the trap with single specialist relationships. They are built to deliver a result, not to build a structure underneath the result. So you end up with something you have to keep feeding instead of something that starts feeding itself. We actually ran into this exact situation recently with a new tech startup that came to Ideeva Lab asking for content. Just content. They wanted videos. But before we sat down to actually start building, we hit a wall almost immediately. We couldn't write a single script that meant anything because nobody had ever defined who this brand actually was. No real identity, no clearly defined target audience. No sense of what this company wanted to be known for beyond the product itself. So, before a single video idea got greenlit, we stopped and built something else first. A brand document. We mapped out their actual identity, who they were beneath the product, what they believed, who they were really trying to reach, and why those people would care. From that document came the content ideas, and from the content ideas came a clear picture of the kind of community they needed to be building from day one. Not a community to chase later once the product had traction, but one to start cultivating immediately. That's the difference between being hired to do content and being hired to build a system. Content built on a real identity behaves completely differently from content built to fill a calendar. One compounds, the other just keeps the lights on until the budget runs out. Another exercise, the specialist evaluation framework. Ask every specialist you work with one question. If we stopped working together in 6 months, what would still be running? If they can't answer, they're delivering a result, not building a system. If they can answer, they're building something that outlasts their involvement. Hire for the second one. If you're already working with someone who can't answer this, don't fire them. Just, ask the questions differently. So instead of what can you do for us this quarter, ask what can you build that will keep working after you're gone. You might be surprised how many of them will welcome the shift. So here's a feeling you have probably had and never had a name for. Disconnected marketing has a very specific texture to it. It's the feeling of starting from zero every single month. New campaign, new content calendar, new ad budget, another desperate push for attention, exhausting in a way that doesn't match the hours you've actually put in. That's because fragmented work doesn't compound. It resets. Picture pushing a stalled car 5 meters down the street, then walking back to the start and pushing it 5 meters again the next day. Then walking back again. Real efforts every single day, zero accumulation. Now picture riding the bike uphill instead. The first few pedal strokes are brutal, almost pointless feeling. But somewhere past the third or fourth push, the bike finds its own momentum. So every stroke after that carries further than the one before. That second feeling is what is actually missing. Not effort, not talent, not tactics. A system that lets effort compound instead of reset. Which is why you should do the 30-day reset audit. So go back through your last 6 months of content. For each piece, ask one question. Did this build on something that came before it, or did it start a brand new conversation from nothing? If most of it is starting from nothing, you already know why you're tired. You're pushing the car from a fresh starting line every single time. Here's the fix. For the next 30 days, every piece of content you publish must reference something you've already said. A previous post, an old email, a customer story you told 3 months ago. A belief you've been repeating. So build a thread. Don't start new ones. At the end of 30 days, run the connection audit again. If your connection rate hasn't climbed, you're still not actually connecting. You're just pretending to. Moving on. There's the third uncomfortable idea, and it's going to undo something you've probably said out loud to someone. TikTok didn't change your business. Facebook ads didn't change anything. Email marketing didn't save you. And yes, I know that contradicts the story you tell, but take a closer look at it anyway. So maybe TikTok did introduce someone to the brand, but why did they stay? Why did they trust you enough to buy? Why did they come back a second time and tell someone else about it? The answer was never the platform. The platform was a doorway into something that already existed behind it. So people confuse the doorway with the building, then spend the next year hunting for a new doorway instead of strengthening the building that was actually doing the work. So the next time a channel works for you, don't credit the channel. Ask what happened after the click. So if people stayed, bought, and then came back, the channel was a doorway into something real. If they didn't, no new doorway would fix that. So let's finally answer the question from the start. If good people aren't the problem, what is? It's the absence of three things working together, and we call it the culture triangle. Identity is the first corner. Not what you sell, who you are, what you believe, why you exist beyond making money, what someone should remember about you when your product isn't even in front of them. Without it, every piece of content is a disconnected opinion, and every campaign sounds like a different company made it. Content is the second corner. It is simply identity made visible. Every article, every ad, every post, every conversation, identity traveling outwards into the world. Without it, identity stays locked inside your head, doing no work at all. Community is the third corner, and it's the one most people get wrong. Not followers, not likes, not a quiet Discord server nobody opens. Community is shared belief, a group of people who start seeing themselves inside your story until they stop just buying your product and start believing what you believe. That's the point where a business becomes nearly impossible to replace, because a competitor can copy a product, but they can't copy a belief system someone already belongs to. Connect all three and something compounding happens. Identity tells content what to say, content attracts the right community, and community validates the identity back. Then it loops, and every pass through makes identity sharper, content stronger, and community larger. Remove one corner and it collapses in a predictable way. Strong identity and good content with no community means you're talking and nobody's listening. Identity and community with no content means people like you and have no idea why. Content and community with no identity means you attract people you can never keep because nothing really is holding them there. Now let's run three filters. First, the identity test. Write one sentence that completes this statement. We believe that blah, blah, blah. If you can't do it in one sentence, or if the sentence sounds like a generic platitude, that's your starting point. So spend some time interviewing 5 customers and asking them what they think you believe. Compare their answers to yours. The gap between those two things is where your identity work begins. Second, the content alignment filter. Before you produce anything going forward, write down the one thing that every piece of content must reinforce. Then run every idea through this filter. Does this move someone closer to believing that one thing? If the answer is no, don't produce it. If the answer is yes, produce it. That's it. That's the entire editorial strategy. Third, the community maturity scale. Community has 4 stages. Now, stage 1, people are aware of you. Stage 2, people are engaged with your content. Stage 3, people are engaged with each other around your content. And stage 4, people defend you to others. Now, map your community to one of these stages. Then ask one question. What would it take to move them to the next stage? That's your community strategy for the next quarter. Score yourself honestly. Right now, out of 10 on each corner. A lot of founders find one corner quietly dragging the other 2 down. That weak corner, not a new platform, not a new agency, not a new ad format, is where the next month of work belongs. So let's go back to the buckets one more time. Before you spend another dollar on marketing, you need to find the actual leak. The 3 diagnostic questions. First, are people arriving and not staying? That's a retention leak. So fix the experience after the click. Your site, your email sequence, your onboarding, whatever happens after someone shows up. Second, are people staying and not buying? That's a trust leak. So fix what you're saying about yourself, your positioning, your messaging, your proof points. And then third, are people buying and not returning? That's a value leak. Fix the product or the follow-up, your actual offering or what happens after someone buys. So choose the question that stings most. That's your leak. Fix that before you increase spend anywhere or before you hand the whole problem to another single specialist. So here is where all of this lands. The good people weren't the problem. They were doing excellent work inside a structure that had no blueprint. The same way brilliant tradespeople would build a house that still doesn't function. The specialist agency wasn't the problem either. It was doing exactly what it was hired to do. Deliver a result when what the business actually needed was a system that could keep delivering results on its own. The bigger budget wasn't the fix. It was pouring more water into a bucket with a hole in it. The hole being the missing connection between identity, content, and community. And the platform that changed everything was never the real engine. It was just a doorway into a building that either existed behind it or didn't. Campaigns end, culture doesn't. Ads stop the moment the budget runs out. Identity doesn't. Algorithms change overnight. Community stays because it was never built on an algorithm's permission to begin with. Platforms disappear entirely, beliefs remain. So if there's one shift to make after watching this video, it's this. Stop asking what tactic to try next. Start asking how everything you're already doing actually connects. Every week, block 30 minutes. Ask yourself 3 questions. What did we publish this week? Does it point to one belief? And did it spark a conversation that moved someone closer to that belief? That's it. If you do that every week, you'll catch drift before it becomes a problem. You'll notice when content starts wandering away from identity. You'll notice when community engagement drops. You'll notice when the connection between pieces starts to fray. And you'll fix it before it becomes a quarter of wasted work. None of this needs a bigger budget. It needs fewer disconnected moves and more connected ones. Businesses don't become unforgettable by doing more. They become unforgettable when everything they're already doing finally works together. That's it for this video. If you want to have a conversation, we're always happy to talk. Visit us on www.ideevalab.com. That is IDEEVA lab.com. Book a time to just have a conversation with us. And, we'll see what we can make happen. Have a good one.